Roll up and listen to Incense and Ashtrays with Dwan B. Music for your soul. Roll up and listen to Incense and Ashtrays with Dwan B. Music for your soul.
What up, y'all? I am here. We're gonna do some Incense and Ashtrays talk today. We talking about some music, so I want y'all to roll up and listen. Roll that joint or whatever it is that you smoke. If you smoke cigarettes, yuck. But smoke that stanky shit anyway. We about to go live in a second. You know what I'm saying? We are here. Let me go turn this music down in the background. I got music playing. I got one song playing in my living room. Another song. Let me go turn this shit down. Hold on. There we go. I had the good shit playing in the background. I had Stevie Wonder back there playing. But we here.
Incense and ashtrays. Music for your soul.
There you go. Incense and ashtrays. Music for your motherfucking soul. Yeah. What's up, Quanez? B. Paulie said, if you smoke cigarettes, reevaluate your life. What's up, Brim Dog? Yeah, we here talking. We keep it in light. You know what I mean? Because I like to talk about what's going on politically. I like to talk about what's going on in the world. But I also like to keep it light, too. Because, man, look. At the end of the day, the only thing you can change is yourself. Not what's going on out there in the world. The only thing you can do is change yourself. And on top of that, like, look, you can't always be mad and serious. And that's stress, man. I ain't got time for all that goddamn stress. Sometimes you gotta de-stress. You ever talk to them people that be like, man, I don't do nothing, man. I don't watch TV. I don't watch sports. I don't visit my family when it's holiday season time. I don't do nothing, Jack. And sit your ass down, nigga. And fuck that shit. I be having fun. And music, to me, that music is the number one de-stressor to me, for me. You know what I mean? Like, as far as for how I get down. Music is it for me. Yeah. What's up, Evan? You said you just quit smoking cigarettes 2 years ago. I'm glad I never got that habit. You know what I mean? My fat ass got all kind of other habits. That's why I don't judge habits. You know what I mean? Everybody got they shit. Everybody got they shit. Everybody. Tower Power had a song back in the day on their album East Grease Bay called Social Lubrication. And that song basically says everybody got their own way to get high. And that's true. Why am I gonna sit here and judge your way to get high when I got my own issues of my own ways to get high? Some people they talk about not smoking, not drinking, but you niggas get high on. You got people that get high on negative interactions. People that get high on judging people for doing what they not doing. People that get high on causing tension in relationships. People that get high. Everybody got their own way to get high. So always accept yourself. And the parts of your life that you ain't really jiving with, that you don't like, change it. Don't sit around judging other people for the parts they ain't got right, because you got that part of your life right. Man, I ain't got time for that bullshit. I like, you ever be on social media and you put a post up and you say it's always one or two people that come in your post and they be like, man, I've been saying that. Well, nigga, go say it on your fucking page. Shit. Nigga, every time you say something, they want to say ain't nobody listening to me though. Probably because you a goober, nigga. It's like, fuck you telling me what you been saying. You know what I mean? But today, we are, Eastwood talking about Victor Canty, yeah, Balco. Yep. Yeah. But we here. We talking about the golden age of American music. And if I feel like it later, I'll let you niggas call in. But I don't know. It depends on how I feel. It depends on how I feel. Can y'all hear me straight? So to make sure y'all can hear me straight. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me straight before I get all the way going in. Yeah. Okay, yeah, y'all hear me? All right, cool. Y'all hear me straight, cool. Yeah. But we talk about I personally put the golden age of music, of American music, because remember, first off, we gotta start off by saying this. I no longer stop saying black music, because if you notice when you watch music documentaries, they always make it seem like black music is some side thing. Like, oh yeah, this is what the Beatles were doing, but the black people were over there on the side doing that. They always kind of other us. And we do it to ourselves. You always see it's always particular artists that's always, talking about, well, black music as if it's some side thing. No. Black music is American music. We gotta own that and we gotta claim that. Black music, American music is black music, and black music is American music. Inseparable. Every other form of music played in America is a derivative of what we as black people create. Every form. Bluegrass, country, what do they call that? EDM, all that shit. All of that is a derivative of black music. Okay? Black music started really took off, of course. Music started to take off, of course, with the advent of the phonograph, that's record player, and the radio. But black American music really started to get in the modern form that we see now in the 1950s. The 1950s is when a lot of American music started to gel. Because, let's tell the truth, it all comes out of the South. It all comes from Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, that delta right there. That's where it comes from. And as black people started to migrate throughout the rest of the country, we took our music talents with us. For detailed accounts, I want y'all to go ahead and listen to that last interview I did with Mr. Bobby Rush. That is only a 50-minute long interview, so go back. I don't know why it got so few views. I don't know why y'all niggas don't be fucking with the music interviews. That's where you be finding that history, where you find them old school cats telling what they saw, what they grew up in the 1940s and 50s while it was happening. You don't wait for some white motherfuckers to tell you their revisionist history. You go to the people who were alive and that thing was going on, and you get the first-hand accounts from their words. That's how we get to the nitty-gritty when it comes to history. One thing Mr. Bobby Rush said in that interview that really stuck to me was what was going on in the South in the 40s. If people are coming in here thinking that they're about to teach, moderators, mute them. Nobody's coming to hear you. They're coming to hear me. Don't tell me where things didn't come from behind your keyboard. I ain't even set the shit up yet. God damn. That's why you know these people don't be knowing shit. They could just come right in the chat room. Nonsense, nonsense, nonsense. Send. I'm gonna type some bullshit. Send. That nigga wrong. I'm right. Send. I don't even know where the fuck I'm going with this. Already running your goddamn mouth. Moderators, time them kind of niggas out. We ain't got time for them right there, right now. God damn. I know more than this nigga send. Listen to me, not this nigga send. You the most sendingest ass niggas out there. Don't know shit because you don't listen. All you do is hit send all day. The minute somebody say 2 words, you run into your send button. Confusing motherfuckers. You right, B Paul. I ain't even start yet. Motherfuckers already coming in sending messages. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Send. Fuck out of here. Where was I at? Black American music. When you go look back and listen to that interview I had with Mr. Bobby Rush, he said something very interesting. He talked about he's talking about the chitlin circuit from a point of view that I had never heard before. Mr. Bobby Rush came up on the chitlin circuit in the 1950s, 60s. The people that came up in the chitlin circuit in the 50s and 40s and 60s, that was the second generation of the modern chitlin circuit, maybe third generation, because the chitlin circuit go back to the 1800s. So that was the third generation of the chitlin circuit. Mr. Bobby Rush. And he talked about Muddy Waters, who is the king of heavy metal. If you want to understand heavy metal, rock and roll, that guitar sound, you have to understand Muddy Waters. Because, why am I going to say that? Because when you listen to that early Jimi Hendrix was playing the exact same thing Muddy was playing. He just had a louder amp. And when you listen to early Prince, that early, the Prince from when he debuted to around Purple Rain, again, Muddy Waters played over again. It wasn't until after 84 when Prince really started coming to his own on that guitar. But those guitar riffs pre-1984, Muddy Waters, flat out. You had Muddy Waters on the same tour, on the same circuit as Moms Mabley, founder of stand-up comedy, Red Fox, Howlin' Wolf. When it comes to rock and roll, Howlin' Wolf. You had Pigmeat Markham on that same circuit. Pigmeat Markham, rap. Here comes the judge. Here comes the judge. Bobby Rush said something really interesting because I'm a comedian. You know what I mean? Y'all know I do stand-up comedy, even though I don't really be getting on stage like that much lately because I'd rather talk to you niggas than go out and getting on stage here in LA because these LA stages ain't shit. I'd rather come make you niggas laugh. But he talked about how on the chitlin circuit, you couldn't just do one thing. You couldn't just be a guitar player. You had to be a full-on entertainer. You had to play the guitar. You had to sing. You had to dance. You had to tell jokes because sharecropping black folks ain't gonna be picking hundreds of pounds of cotton all week to spend they 2 nickels that they got at the juke joint that weekend to see you get on stage and fuck around. Nah, nigga, if you was gonna be in that chitlin circuit, you had to bring it. You had to sing hard, you had to dance hard, You had to play hard, and you better make them niggas laugh. You had to be a full-on entertainer. Why am I saying all this as I rev up to y'all know me? I like to set a foundation before I give you guys my point of view to let you know where I'm coming from. Because I'm not just coming from just what I'm saying. I'm coming from really studying this shit. And if you have a different point of view, if you want to expand the timeline, that's fine. You have a YouTube channel, go create a video and do it. But right now we listening to me. So during that time, you had a lot of people, as people started to go north from the South, catch those trains to Chicago, New York, and different places. The music came along with them. A lot of your jazz got really cracking. People think New York. No, before it got really popping in New York, it was popping in Kansas City. It was popping in Chicago at the same time it was popping in New York. Our music started to go throughout the country. So when people say, okay, that's Chicago this, that's New York that, hip hop, like hip hop fans be thinking this regional shit is new. No. The music takes on the tone of the environment and the energy of the environment that you're in. So as people left the South and went to Detroit, where did they work? They worked generally in auto plant, something to do with automotive. So when you listen to 1960s, when you listen to Motown, and you listen to the Four Tops, Martha and the Vandellas, that early Smokey Robinson, Temptations, a lot of that music had a straight 1, 2, 3, 4, just a straight pace. Dun, 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 dun. Why do they have that kind of a tone and a kind of a feel? Well, because young musicians from the South all had jobs on assembly lines. And an assembly line is constant motion, constant work. So that feel and that energy is going to get put into the music. When you go to New York, New Yorkers had really hard jazz. When you go into you look up Chick Webb, 1941, when he used to have his at the Savoy, Chick Webb used to have these battles. It was called Battle of the Bands. All throughout the 30s. New York jazz was a lot like New York rap. It was loud, it was in your face, it was fast paced, it was fuck you, get out my way. Chick Webb used to swing hard. You could not go to the Savoy and outplay Chick Webb. That white boys tried that shit, the one they called the King of Swing, and got murdered. But that's because New York has a fuck ton of subways. New York is fast paced. New York is hard, as gritty as car horns, police sirens. So the music has to drown that out. That's why hard bop became popularized in New York. And a lot of that hard-nosed jazz. Because of the energy of the city. Los Angeles, it's sunny it's sunny 320 days a year out here. 340 days a year some years. It's sunshine. It's space, wide open. You got to have a car to get around here. You can't catch no subway. And when it's sunny outside and warm, you got to chill and relax. That's why when Miles Davis came out with Birth of the Cool, he came out to L.A. to create that new form of jazz, what they call cool jazz. Birth of the Cool. West Coast funk. Lay back in the pocket. Kick back. Lots of melody here in LA. LA's music is full of melody. Listen to Kendrick Lamar's to Pimp a Butterfly. That's about as LA as it gets. He combined West Coast jazz, Kamasi Washington, Terrace Martin, Flying Lotus, who plays EDM and jazz. Robert Glasper out of Houston, but he always up here in LA. DJ Quick, you know, it's a different energy out here. So the music reflects that energy. That's why I never get into these dumbass hip hop arguments about which coast has better music, who does this, who does that. Nigga, it all comes down to what is palatable to you. And what's palatable to you generally comes from is a reflection of your environment. Your music, yeah, you're right, Thundercat. Thank you for that. I can't believe I forgot Ramon. Can't believe I forgot Thundercat. Yeah. I talked to Thundercat at the bowl. I was trying to interview that nigga, but he on the road now. So hopefully I can interview Thundercat when he gets off the road. Saw him at the Hollywood Bowl a couple months ago. We exchanged information. Hopefully I can get that interview. Yeah, the internet. My man J-Mo. Go listen to my interview I did with J-Mo, Jarvis Mosey. He did a lot of the music behind Anthony Hamilton, Jasmine Sullivan, Anderson .Paak. Go listen to that. Ohio was gritty. So Ohio has a funk like no other. Especially in that Dayton area. Dayton, man, that Dayton funk. Zapp and Rogers, shit. I'm glad most of them niggas moved to LA, because that LA West Coast funk is really a hybrid of what was going on in Dayton, in Ohio, when people moved out here with the sunshine. Yeah, rest in peace, Gerald Wilson from the jazz band. I said jazz band, Gap Band. Rest in peace. And rest in peace, Pat Martino. Pat Martini, guitarist. But all of these things go into our music. Yeah, Bootsy Collins is from Ohio. Ernie Izzy Brothers. Why am I bringing you all this information? Because when it comes to American music, which is black music, the competition and the influence was all in-house. Niggas wasn't up on it. It wasn't no internet back then. People didn't have TVs back then in the 40s and 50s when this soup that we call American music was really coming together. The radio stations only had United States radio stations. We couldn't get radio from England, from Japan, from the Caribbean. Now, cats in the Caribbean, in Cuba and Jamaica, they could hear our music, but we couldn't hear them. This whole thing we call American music was all done in-house. In-house. In the United States of America. Right here. Right at home. I don't want to hear all that shit about, well, this is an argument that people try to make. And I'm going to give you guys a talking point to this argument. They'll try to say, oh, well, jazz or ragtime was influenced by French because in Louisiana, that used to be a colony of France. Well, tell them this. First of all, dumbass, it wasn't just Louisiana. It was a third of the nation. It's much more than that. Included Kansas, all the other states. Second, the Louisiana Purchase was in 1804. That's when the United States got that piece of land from Louisiana, from France. When the United States took possession of that land, guess what? The people that were enslaved, the indigenous people who were there that were enslaved, they weren't allowed to play music. Slaves weren't learning music notes and instruments while they was picking cotton. Okay? The people who were alive when that was Louisiana territory were long gone by the time the Civil War came. After the Civil War, when black people were free, as sharecroppers, they could no longer outlaw black people doing music. So black people got things like diddly bows, and they would create instruments out of a diddly bow. Mr. Bobby Rush talks about this, what a diddly bow is. Basically, it's a piece of hay wire, a piece of wood, a bucket, or something that can hold everything together, a brick, and they play that. And they put music together. The drum set was created by Black Americans, Foundation of Black Americans, D.D. Chandler, 1896, out in New Orleans. Before the drum set, there were drums across the board, played by multiple people. The drum set made it to where only one person had to do it. And the drum set changed the sound of American music forever. We get ragtime. We got ragtime. We got the blues, jazz, gospel. All of that came. So, let's get down to what I call the golden age of American music. This is my opinion. I'm not saying this is the fact. This is my opinion. Through years and years and years of studying, the golden age of music, of American music, to me was between 1955 and 1993. (1955 to 1993). A lot of people debated with me when I put this up on social media last week and told me I should extend it to 1996, and I understand why people say that. Personally, I don't. Let me start from the end and go back to the beginning. Why don't I extend it past 93? Because in 93 was when, and we've heard Brother Too Short talk about this. We've heard Brother Professor Griff talk about this. 93 was when, you know, the record industry and the powers that be that control the distribution got together and changed what was put in the sauce, what was put in the music. So from 94 on, you started to see a slow dumbing down of our music, very slowly. For the slow people in the room, when I give dates, I'm not saying all music before that was bad or anything, or music before or after. I'm just saying this was the time that the musicians and the music flowed freely without commercial interruption. There was a lot of great music after 93. No, I ain't tripping. It's still great. Look, it's still great music being produced today. That man Corey Henry put out a dope album last month. He got so much goddamn soul. So I ended it at 93 because that's when they put their hands on hip hop, and hip hop was to change forever. And plus, this my personal thing. I didn't like 1996 in music. I remember personally because I was 15 years old, and I saw the effect the whole Tupac Biggie thing had on regular layman ass niggas. 96 is when you had, yeah, I know some Death Row started a lot of the gangster stuff, but really, by the time you get to 96, it got to be too much with the gangster shit. Everybody was a gangster. I remember growing up in LA. And where I grew up, man, you didn't say cuz of blood unless you banged. It was a mutual respect between the regular niggas and the thug niggas. If I don't use y'all words, they left me alone. Niggas that use their words, about to get jumped on and put on the set. So I stayed away from that shit. 96 is when I saw a lot of people wanting to be Tupac. All these homo thug ass niggas walking around here thinking they Tupac. Studio gangster in it, thinking that they Biggie. Them two niggas went to music school. They ain't no goddamn thugs. That's when the character started overtaking the music. And I ain't like that. Because for me, it's about the music first, not the character. So I thought it was a lot of poison that got, and then on top of that, it was either gonna be a thug or gonna be a fly guy. Money ain't a thing. Spend money as fast as you get it. A lot of that stuff really started to take a foothold in 95. The whole Dame Dash, Puffy, that whole East Coast, I'm flyer than you, I got more money than you. All that shit really started to take a foothold in 96. So for that reason, yes, and it was still great music. And Outkast released, it was still some great music released in 96. Just because I say one thing don't mean the other isn't true too. For the slow tropes out there, okay? So the golden age of American music. What's up, Jaren 215? What's up, Star? What's up, FBA Strong? Thank y'all for joining me. So let's go back to why I break it down to 1955. Because on my Facebook post I put 1960, but now I gotta take it back to 1955. Here's the reason why I put it, I started the golden age of 55. Because although there was great music before then, there was. To me, 55 is when a lot of the music forms were polished that started earlier on. And the new music forms that were to come were right there getting ready to happen, all started in 1955. In 55, you still had your greats like Louis, your early greats like Louis Armstrong was still around. Memphis Slim on the blues side, they were still around. But you had your second generation of jazz cats coming through. You know, this is when, you know, your Bird and Dizzy are really starting to make waves. You know, Billie Holiday by then was on the downside of her career, but she was still out there. You had swing was going. You know, you had your big band era that was going. You also had your comings of all of that stuff was going on in 55. The blues, especially out of Chicago, was the blues recording industry out of Chicago in the 50s is what R&B and Motown was in the 60s in Detroit. You had all that stuff going on that was really laying the foundation, because the foundation for what we call hip hop, what we call modern R&B, what we call funk, disco, all of that stuff was really getting put together in the 50s in Chicago, in the blues areas. That's where it was really starting to come together. Jackie Wilson was doing his thing. Berry Gordy was getting his songwriting on. Smokey Robinson was a child. That's the music that Diana Ross grew up on. The Temptations grew up listening to. That's the music that inspired Joe Jackson to raise his children as artists. That's the music that inspired, you know, what was going on. I have Ray Charles down here. It was in the 1950s is when Ray Charles really started to fuse the jazz with the blues. You know, you had Chuck Berry and Ike Turner and Charles Brown. They were doing it. You had Fats Domino that had his style. And if you listen to my interview with Bobby Rush, he talks about being with Fats Domino. Fats Domino's responsible for reggae. He, Roscoe Parrish, they were doing their things around this time. All this was going on around this time. All of this was going on. They were really putting together the sauce that ended up evolving into what we now listen to. Hell yeah, Chuck Berry was hip-hop than a motherfucker. Chuck Berry was so hip-hop, they put some false charges on his ass and put him in jail. Y'all think this shit is new. They been throwing charges on niggas that do great things and put him in jail. They ended up apologizing to him years later after he spent that time in prison on some bullshit. Hell yeah, Chuck Berry was hip-hop. A lot of this was going into the sauce at this time. I remember having I had a conversation with my father-in-law about this. My father-in-law, if y'all don't know, Mr. James Carmichael, is one of the absolute greatest music arrangers and producers to ever walk this planet. I don't give a fuck. I put Mr. Carmichael's string arrangements up there with Mozart's. When I listened to the string arrangements that he wrote throughout his career, all thousands of string arrangements, I put that, man, shit, all right. But he's 80 years old now. And, you know, we talk music when I go see him a lot. And he talks about, you know, in the 40s, what he was listening to. And how the blues, and how by the time you get to the 50s, in the late 40s, gospel music started to emerge. See, I always thought gospel music was always around. I have been taught that gospel music was where the blues and everything else comes from. Gospel music was always around. That's not true. You had Negro spirituals, but Negro spirituals and gospel music are two separate things. Remember that. The Negro spirituals that they sang on the slave fields to pass messages, that and gospel music are two different things. The blues had taken off, the jazz had taken off. It wasn't until really the 40s that gospel music started to become a thing. I found this out 6 months ago. The church was big, so of course the church needed its own soundtrack. And the church needed to separate itself from what was going on in the world. You know how they say in the world. So even though these songs were sang in church before the 1940s, they weren't put out commercially as a genre of music, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, down by the riverside, we were singing that in church. But they weren't putting that in radio form in record form in the 19 teens, 20s, and 30s. It really wasn't until the 40s that they started to put that on wax. And I asked him, like, when he got his job at Motown in the 60s, writing arrangements. I was asking him, so what did you listen to? I'm expecting him to tell me he listened to Ray Charles and he listened. And he was like, man, I was listening. I was too busy playing in church. And those beautiful string arrangements that we hear him write, whether it be Love Will Find a Way by Lionel Richie, he wrote Anything Atlantic Star. He wrote the string arrangements for the early Jackson 5, Got to Be There. He co-produced. He wrote the arrangements for Michael Jackson's first 2 or 3 albums. Hal Davis produced. He wrote, Got to Be There, Dancing Machine, My favorite string arrangement of his is the one from Zoom. You know, Zoom by the Commodores. Diana Ross, Eddie Kendrick. I can't name. The nigga wrote for he produced for Motown. So your favorite artist out there has a string arrangement, a vocal arrangement, an orchestral arrangement by my father-in-law. Period. So when I spread these stories to you, I appreciate that, America's Maker. You gotta spread the facts. I talk to the people directly. And I'm giving you guys the information so when these other groups try to steal our shit, you can have some things to say. Yes, Ben also, he wrote the vocal arrangement. I mean, he's always talking about like how hard the Jackson 5 worked. He's like, man, we worked them boys hard. But they had someone from the state to make sure everything was done within union guidelines, that they had a maximum amount of hours per week that they can work. And he said when the Jackson 5 would come to the studio, they would come directly after school. Like, they didn't have no time to play, get in the car, come to the studio, and they work until about 8 o'clock. And then the union rep be like, okay, that's enough time. They go home, go to sleep. Next day, go to school, come back, and he said they worked them the whole 8 hours on Saturday and the whole 8 hours on Sunday. He said them boys was in the studio 7 days a week working because they had so much talent. Every producer wanted to cut a song with them. And how Motown worked was Motown was a chain. You know, they had the artists, but your producers, your arrangers, they had music that they wanted to pin on different artists. That's why you had Gladys Knight do Heard It Through the Grapevine and Marvin Gaye. In Motown, you would have multiple artists do the same song, and then they would have discussions on Monday at the producer meetings that, you know, which ones to release, which ones to cut, which ones to shelve. That's how Motown worked. So I asked him, I was like, man, so was Michael, how did they act? He said, Michael, one thing, he said he had a lot of energy, but one thing that he would do, he said, and he brought up the song Dancing Machine specifically. He said he remembers when they were working on Dancing Machine. You know, he wrote the vocal arrangements. That part would go, ooh, bop, doo da bop. Ooh, bop, doo da bop. See, people be thinking the music, that shit just is all, the artist just does all this shit. No, it's people that arrange all this shit. The artist is just the person that delivers what the people behind the scenes wrote and put together. So he wrote that part into Dancing Machine. And he said, well, he remembers being at the mic with the Jacksons. And one thing that they would do to pass a little bit of time while he's over there trying to tell him what to sing, Michael and be pulling his coats from behind, and somebody try to kick one brother, kick the other brothers in the ass. They do all kind of like little fun shit. And he was like, you couldn't really call them bad because you understood these niggas was at school all day and had no free time. Imagine getting out of school and having no time to yourself. And so they would play around in the studio a lot. But he also said Michael was a grown man, even at a young age. Like, he always came in to work. He always worked. But when he wasn't working, sometimes he would just go to the corner and just be by himself. He said Michael would just sit there. Like sometimes just, you couldn't find Michael. Michael would find a closet somewhere in the studio that where he could just be alone. And he said he thought about Michael like, damn, like, this boy really don't get no alone time. He really do not get a chance to be a kid. Quick first-hand segue. I got more of these. I got a lot of these. I got a lot of these stories now. Y'all know me. I like dropping in these stories whenever I can. I've heard so many stories I don't be thinking to drop them until I start talking about it. Well, in the 50s, going back to the 50s, you had all these things coming together. So by the time you get to the 60s and get Motown and Stax and Chess, these were all the people growing up listening to music through the 40s and the 50s. Another reason why I put the golden age of music in that pocket is also with the time that recording equipment got better, especially as you get into the late 60s and into the 70s. That's when the recording equipment got to a point to where it could sufficiently record the music well. Because Count Basie, Duke Ellington, they had some cold arrangements back in the 30s. But the recording equipment was so bad. You couldn't really make out everything. It wasn't really until you get into the 70s, that late 60s into the 70s, is when you get to the part where the recording equipment was on par with the talent of music. Another reason why I put the era, I started in the 50s, and I'm thinking about the recording because, you know, what is music without a good microphone? I put it starting at during this time is also because that's when the radio started to become really big, and by the time you get to 1955, the radio is now for the most part in every home. Everybody ain't got a TV yet, but everybody got a radio. So they allowed the music to be played more. It gave access to more children growing up and listening. And that's what made music in the 60s and the 70s so rich, is because when you get to the 50s, you get to the first generation that yes, people had radios in the 20s and 30s, but the 50s is when it's widely out there. Everybody still didn't have a radio in the 20s and the 30s. Oftentimes, families would have to go over. It would be someone on the block in the neighborhood, well, not neighborhood, in the area that had a radio, and they would go to that person's house to listen to the Joe Louis fight or whatever on a Saturday. For the most part, in the 40s and the 50s, they would still tell stories to one another before you get to the mid 50s. And then you get to the 60s, that's when the TV becomes a thing. And by the time you get to the mid 60s, most homes had a TV. So the TV allowed for the next generation of musicians to see for the first time artists they wanted to be like. So all of this goes into why I'm putting this era in the golden era of American music. Because it's not just the music itself, it's also the technology that allowed the music to be broadcast on a bigger level to more people. I appreciate that, Quanez. Yeah, everybody like and share. Please, like and share. Yeah, you're right. Eastwood 03, it wasn't too long ago. It was funny. I was talking to my father-in-law just like 2 weeks ago, and he was just talking about how he remembers when life before plastic, life before the radio, life before TV, and he remembers growing up and seeing these things come into his home for the first time. See, we grew up thinking plastic is just, we kind of take that for granted. Put the shit in the little plastic, thing, throw it in, put the food in the plastic, throw it in the refrigerator, the Tupperware, we good. But he remembers the first refrigerators coming into the home and all these things. So I encourage you out there, if you got family members 70 plus, really if they're 80 plus, just go and talk to them about growing up. You don't have to have a specific question. Just talk to them about their childhood and what they seen. You'll get some great stories out of these people, man, I'm telling you. And when you get it from your elders first, you get the real authentic thing. Not what these white boys try to remix or remaster to you. You're right, American man. Like, this is to all these people that want to talk about we got our influence from dancehall. Niggas wasn't thinking about no goddamn dancehall as all this shit was getting put together. Bo Diddley created his guitar. They want to talk about a goddamn sound system. Jamaicans was playing our music through their sound system. That's what they say. They didn't want to hear no more of that. They didn't want to hear no more of them corny ass steel drums. And I like the steel drums. But they were tired of it. That's what they took to our music like a fish to water. And the rest of the world did too. When the rest of the world heard Black American music, them niggas went and found, they were like, where that drum set at? Shit. They ditched those traditional instruments so fast and picked up Black American drum sets, the Black American electric bass, the Black American electric guitar and keyboard. All these other countries started picking up the instruments we was playing when we went out and showed them what the fuck we did and how we got down. Don't let these motherfuckers try to twist the story, people. We talking some history. Golden age of American music. We are talking the golden age of American music on Incense and Ashtrays.
You're listening to Incense and Ashtrays with Dwan B. Music for your soul.
Music for your motherfucking soul. Like, share, and subscribe right now. Incense and Ashtrays. We talking about the golden age of American music between 1955 and 1993. The 60s is when you started to get R&B, doo-wop, rock and roll was coming into its own. Jazz was reaching its zenith. And then you get to 1968 when Sly and the Family Stone comes out with that funk. James Brown come out with that funk. Then in 1970, you get an album that changed the course of music again. Miles Davis changed the course of music 3 different times. The first one was with his album Birth of the Cool, when he started with the cool jazz. The second time he changed music, and I think his biggest impact, was Bitches Brew. Bitches Brew is one of the most important albums of all time. You saw Miles sort of change up his stilo. He ditched his suits and started dressing funky like Sly Stone. And what he did was he fused jazz with funk, with rock. Funk and rock were new sounds. Jimi Hendrix, Sly and the Family Stone, these are newer sounds. Jazz needed something, an infusion, because in the 60s, John Coltrane took jazz to a point to where there was nowhere else to go within the genre of jazz. By 1968, 1967, that shit Coltrane was on, jazz reached its zenith. There was nowhere else to go within the house of jazz. Jazz had to then start going outward and start infusing and bringing in other sounds. Bitches Brew by Miles Davis was the album that did that. Pharaoh's Dance. Listen to that if you want some music. Pharaoh's Dance. Miles Davis did that. And out of Bitches Brew, George Clinton saw what Davis was doing Because before Bitches Brew, Parliament was a doo-wop band. People don't know that. Parliament goes back to the late 50s, early 60s. They had a barbershop in Plainfield, New Jersey. George had a barbershop where he did the fried dye laid to the side. He was putting conks in niggas' heads in Plainfield, New Jersey. And they would sing. And they would sing doo-wop. Eddie Hazel, Bernie Worrell, they were the kids. Those are like the neighborhood kids that would eventually become the band for Parliament. By the time they were 7, 8 years old, running around the shop, fucking shit up, they got a little bit older, and that's when George took everyone to Detroit, looking for a contract with Motown. And George, he did some work with Motown. He placed a few songs, but it didn't really work out. At the same time, Bootsy Collins is in Dayton. He goes to Detroit. He and Felipe, Bootsy, his brother Catfish Collins, and Felipe Wynn. Felipe Wynn was the lead singer of the Spinners. Well, they were going to Detroit looking for a Motown deal. Bootsy was going looking to, he heard about this band, the Parliaments. And he and Felipe and Catfish wanted to play for them. That didn't work out. Felipe ended up getting a deal with the Spinners, and Bootsy started working with James Brown. That's how that happened at first. So in 1970, when Parliament saw what they did with Miles Davis did with Bitches Brew, they came out with an album called Ozium. It's kind of hard to find. I have the actual album. I don't think it's on Spotify or iTunes, but I have the album. And that's when they started to sort of open up and turn hippie. George Clinton talks about how it wasn't until he saw what Miles Davis and Sly Stone do that he realized that he could be a hippie. He was like, man, this whole wearing the suit and the comp, he said we could never keep our hair straight anyway. So that hippie shit worked out better for him. That era came. Felipe Wynn went on to the Spinners, and people don't understand the Spinners outsold every doo-wop group in the 70s. The Isley Brothers may have had more success. The Temptations are more famous, but nobody outsold the Spinners in the 70s. Bootsy and Catfish got kicked out of James Brown's band. And they went and got with the Parliament Funkadelic, and they brought that funk. And when Bootsy and when Felipe Wynn had enough of working with the Spinners, he left the Spinners and joined Funkadelic. That's him singing on Not Just Knee Deep. That's him and George going back and forth singing. Boom, ba boom, ba boom, boom, ba dow. That part. Make no mistake, the most funky music got what it takes to turn you around, knock you down. Make you want to do it one more time, yeah. That's Felipe Wynn from the Spinners. Something about the music grows me. So the 70s is when you get to me, in my opinion, the 70s is the zenith of American music. There's a golden age where you have that age where the American music was at its best, but then there's a high point. My personal opinion, the high point of American music was 1976. 1976 to me is the greatest year ever in music. Songs in the Key of Life, the clones of Dr. Funkenstein, Spirit, Earth and Fire came out that year. Herbie, I mean, whether you talking about jazz, whether you're talking about doo-wop, funk, disco, R&B, 1976 was that year to me. Evan, I said the Spinners was outsold everyone. I said doo-wop group. They groups and bands are different. Doo-wop groups are singers who have bands accompanying them. Earth and Fire was a band. Earth and Fire outsold the fucking Rolling Stones. Let me clear that up for people who may have been mistaken. Doo-wop groups, singing groups, and bands are two different things, two different classifications. Another reason why I call the 70s the greatest, the 1970s the absolute zenith of American music. Hip hop was in its infant stages. It had gotten to start. It was already started. You had all forms of American music going at the same time in the 70s. Duke Ellington died in 1975, but he played up until the day he died. You still had Count Basie going around the world for the big band era. Sinatra, Tony Bennett. I'm drawing a blank. Sammy Davis Jr. They were still around on scene doing the classics. You still had your jazz artists, Bird, Dizzy. Well, Bird was dead by then. But Dizzy, Miles, Oscar Peterson, they were still repping for jazz. You had your single male singers, meaning your Marvin Gaye's, your Al Greens. You had your women single singers, your Aretha Franklins, your Gladys Knights after she left the Pips. Then you had your groups going on at that same time. The Temptations were still around. My favorite all-time group is the Dramatics. Can't Get Over You. Hey, download my Incense and Ashtrays on Mixcloud. I did an episode this past Monday just on 80s power singers. I'm gonna be doing more of these specialty episodes with y'all on Mixclouds. I'm gonna do an episode coming up focusing. I'm doing specialized episodes pretty soon. You know, I'm gonna do one where I'm focusing just on Smokey Robinson and his music, the music that he wrote and wrote for other people. I'm going to do episodes on Earth and Fire, episodes on Snoop Dogg, episodes on Kendrick. I'm going to do episodes on Muddy Waters, BB King, so y'all got to download the Mixcloud app. Star, please put that in the chat room, but the Mixcloud app is also in the description bar because I cannot play music on YouTube. YouTube will not allow me to play music. That's the only reason why I'm not doing that over here. I'd hate to ask you guys to download another app, but download it please if you want to get the music with the music breakdown. I can break it down my words here, but over there is where I break it down with the music. So if you're on Spotify, iTunes listening, if you're on YouTube listening, download the Mixcloud app and download Incense and Ashtrays. It is in the description bar as we speak. Oh, what's up, DJ Show in the chat room? Shouts out to DJ Show. Follow that nigga. I like the way DJ Show. DJ Show, he keeps me up to date on what's going on in today's hip hop. Y'all know me. I don't, I stay in my lane. I know where my expertise is. That nigga DJ Show has a different area of expertise in music than I do. So I learned from y'all be seeing me and DJ Show crack on each other on Craig Facts every day, but when we away from the show, I learned a lot from DJ Show, especially when it comes to what's going on in the last 10, 15 years of underground and some radio play music. So salute to DJ Show. So the 70s is when you have your doo-wop groups, Temptations are sitting around, the Dramatics, the Spinners, the Isley Brothers. You also have your bands, Earth, Wind & Fire, Parliament Funkadelic, Confunction. It was also dope when it came on a white music tip. You know what I mean? What they was doing with classic rock in the 70s and into the 80s, what the white boys was doing was pretty dope. You had dope white artists like the Bee Gees. I like what the Bee Gees were doing. Now the Bee Gees, according to them in their own words, were just a knockoff of the Stylistics. We must give the Stylistics in Philadelphia its credit. The Philadelphia sound with the Stylistics gave us, not only did the Bee Gees say that they stole their style from the Stylistics, so did Hall & Oates. Go back and watch Hall & Oates' Hall of Fame induction ceremony. They talk about the Stylistics and how they should not have been the first act out of Philly to get to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It should have been the Stylistics. Hell yeah, Average White Band was dope. Schoolboy Crush, nigga. The Average White Band, to me, look, I'm gonna give these white boys some credit because there are a lot of songs that talk about music, but my favorite ode to music, this music in general, is Queen of My Soul by the Average White Band. Music, sweet music. You're the queen of my soul. You're the one that has gifted me inspiration every day. You're the queen of life. Music, sweet music. Go ahead, listen. Matter of fact, I'm gonna play that on my next Instance in Ashtrays. The Average White Band. Oh yeah, Steely Dan. I love On My Own by Average White Band. Come on now. Come on now. Hell yeah. But Steely Dan, but y'all gotta know, Steely Dan. See, Steely Dan was smart. They knew to get black musicians. When you listen to Steely Dan, Asia, to me, Asia is one of the greatest albums ever put together. White, black, indifferent. Asia by Steely Dan. You had some dope ass white boys back in the 80s. But when you look at what was going on, you had Steve Gadd on drums with Steely Dan. Steve Gadd's, I personally, my third favorite pair of drumsticks are the Vic Firth Steve Gadd editions. Steve Gadd, he's a white boy. I think he's like Italian white boy, but that's a funky motherfucker. Steve Gadd played the drums a lot for Quincy Jones, for Ashford and Simpson, and for Shaka Khan, for a lot of people. They had Steely Dan. They had Steve Gadd on drums. Joe Sample on the Rhodes. Joe Sample was he played for the Crusaders, and he played a lot of music on Michael Jackson's stuff. Wayne Shorter was on saxophone. Nigga, Wayne Shorter, that's Weather Report. So when it came to Steely Dan, they knew to get them niggas in that studio to bring that soul. Bernard Purdy on Deacon Blues playing the drums. Nigga, that song, Deacon Blues. Nigga, the funk on that song. And then if you go back and listen to, what's that song? I got your picture. Peg. Do y'all know that that's Michael McDonald singing background along with Steely Dan? Shining while you see it all. Read it. What is your favorite foreign movie? That's Michael McDonald. And Bernard Purdy on the drums. Bernard Purdy was a brother. He's still alive too. I will be here for 3 days naming all the songs that Bernard Purdy played the drums on. Steely Dan was super smart by the way they got their production. That's what the white boys do. They get the best black musicians to play along with them. They also had Lee Ritenour on guitar. I'm going to go see Lee Ritenour at the end of this month at Catalina Bar and Grill. I love Lee Ritenour on guitar. Out of Santa Monica, California. So the 70s is when you have all of the different forms of music going at once. And then in the 80s is when 1979 is when what happened in 1979 with R&B. I didn't even bring up disco. Fuck. Well, how could I not bring up disco? The first disco song ever was by the Love Unlimited Orchestra, Barry White, Love's Theme. Man, them goddamn Barry White, them Barry White arrangements with Gene Page. My father-in-law worked a lot with Barry White before, back in the 60s, before he really blew up. He wrote on a few of his string arrangements. Because what Barry White would hum the arrangement and Gene Page would write it down. That's how it worked. Barry White knew what he wanted. So he would hum it out and sing it out, and Gene Page would be the one that writes it down and makes it into music. But by the time you get to 1979, funk, R&B, disco, the music industry came in and said, hey, look, black music is too good. It's too far ahead of everything else. And if we allow black music to just mind its own business, it'll be too far ahead of music by the year 2000. So we have to put a stop to this right now. So what they did as the 80s came along is they took the protest music out of music. They took the live instrumentation out of music. Dick Gregory tells this story about, if you ever heard Dick Gregory tell a story about him getting a white paper report and he passed it around because he knew he had it. He figured Dick Gregory felt if he was the only person with his report, they'd kill him. So he passed it around to different people all throughout the music industry so that they can see what was going on, what the plan was in music. And I've personally talked to 2 different top-level music producers. I won't say their names when it comes to this because them niggas is actually still scared, and I don't blame them. They like, look, I don't want nobody knowing nothing about this shit. So I'll tell you, but I'll tell you their names after they pass away. I'm not going to do it while they're alive. But I've talked to 2 different producers who Dick Gregory handed this paper to. And they said, let's take the drums out of the music. You know why? Because the drums are the heartbeat. Drums is what you feel. That's what turns us on as a people. To get to moving is the drum. They took that shit out. I had one producer tell me that this didn't happen to him, but it happened to other producers that he knew. They were told that, look, if you don't start using this drum machine, this is going to be the last album you record in the industry. They basically had a choice to make. Keep the live instrumentation and finish that album, or get rid of the live instrumentation and keep working. That was the choice a lot of music producers in the 80s were faced with. So they started bringing in these synthetic sounds to lower the vibration of the music. But what they didn't have in their plans was Black Americans had another ace up our sleeve. And that ace up our sleeve was called rap. It was called hip hop. Hip hop placed back in the music the militancy that the record industry purposely removed from the music through R&B. Hip hop because we also got to remember, when it comes to when they say, oh, Kool Herc isolated the breakbeat, no. The isolating a breakbeat, that was just what, no. That's what the blues was. Go listen to Howlin' Wolf, Smokestack Lightning. Same shit. He just played it live. That's why I say rap and hip hop is the blues. Rap, hip hop, they stopped teaching music in the 70s in America. So by the time the 80s come along, people who would have been a band, now I'm going to be a DJ. I'm still musically inclined, but since they didn't teach me how to play that keyboard, I'm going to pick up this record and mix 2 and 3 different records together and scratch and isolate a break. I'm isolating break beats because I can't play it myself. Isolating a beat was nothing new. That was going on in the blues. It was going on in funk. James Brown. James Brown was playing the straight same thing over every 4 bars, like they do in hip hop. I got people in here telling me what I'm passing over. I'm still talking about the 80s. And I got somebody in the chat room asking me, so we gonna pass over? Nigga, I'm still in the 80s, god damn it, shit. God damn. Chat room, hey, chill, nigga, chill. I got this, chill. Somebody said, I'm gonna pass over Prince when I got Prince on the goddamn screen here. How am I gonna pass over Prince when he's on the fucking screen right here? Of course I'm gonna talk about Prince. God damn, relax. Shit. Well, anyway, R&B had gotten watered down in the 80s, so we had rap and hip hop. That was a saving grace. And it also revitalized the career of a lot of musicians and a lot of artists, because it started replaying music that was forgotten about. Music people may have not ever even heard before. It brought second life to a lot of musicians from the 70s. 80s hip hop was directly affected by 80s funk. Directly, there's a direct connection. Zapp and Roger. Because when Zapp came, Zapp brought an edge live / electronic funk that took funk to a level to where I can't say there was nowhere else to go, because there was more places to go had the music industry not gotten away. But it made the music so edgy. Zapp and Roger, Rick James, they shit was so edgy. That's what hip hop needed as a soundtrack. Hip hop needed that edge that Zapp gave it, that Rick James gave it. Meanwhile, on the pop end, in the 80s is when classic white rock was at its zenith. White rock and roll, Phil Collins was at its zenith. Earth and Fire broke up in 1983, and the band left and joined Phil Collins. Part of the reason why Phil Collins is so funky, because that's Earth, Wind and Fire playing behind him. You had Madonna, who got real popular, but because of what happened in the 70s when they started, part of the white paper report was to separate the producers from the artists. They stopped signing certain artists but they would re-sign these producers and give them big money to work with white artists. So, as the 70s starts to end, going into the 80s, they don't re-sign the Emotions. They don't re-sign Chic. They don't re-sign the Jones Girls and these other groups that were really integral and really popular in the 70s. They take the producers from those sounds and put them with white artists. So when you get to Like a Virgin from Madonna, that's Bernard Edwards and Nile Rodgers from Chic. Bernard Edwards playing the bass, Nile Rodgers playing the guitar, and they wrote the music. Dun, 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 dun. That's the same person playing bass as the one that sang Le Freak. Like a Virgin was a Chic song. But since the Chic singers weren't around, the song went to Madonna, being one of her biggest hits. And when you get to pop, pop was at its zenith in the 80s through Prince and Michael Jackson. See, if you ask me of all time who's the greatest, I don't like ranking, but who's the greatest artist of all time? I'm going to tell you, if I had to choose one, it's going to be Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder was the greatest as far as he played everything, he produced everything, he sang everything, and he did it for a much longer period than anyone else ever. Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder. If I always say this, God created Stevie Wonder to listen to himself play music. Stevie Wonder had all of the layers. But out of Stevie, when it comes to pop, fame, and performance-wise, you have Michael Jackson and you have Prince in the 80s. What those two brothers did in the 80s, and I don't compare the two, because Stevie Wonder Prince is more in the Stevie Wonder, Roger Troutman line, produce everything, play everything. Michael Jackson is more in the James Brown, Sammy Davis Jr. line. Can help put music together, but really more so on the performance side of the game. They're different DNAs. So that's like comparing a wide receiver to a running back. They're both great at what they do, but they play two totally separate positions, even though it's the same game. That's why you'll never see me compare Michael to Prince. Two totally separate lanes. But where they did converge was their level of stardom during the 80s. Those two brothers, not only did they do our music and they do it well, they were hella black while doing it, man. Listen to how Prince would talk. And listen to his actions. Okay, he got the music down. But watch Prince's actions. I was a child growing up in the 90s. Prince would, if he was going to do a show, he would do the BET Awards before he did the Grammys. He would do the Black Image Awards before he did the American Music Awards. Of course, he did their shit in the 80s to get his fame, but once he got the bag, once he got the fame, Prince came back and worked with black TV shows. You don't have to preach Hotep this and Hotep that if you do it with your actions. Prince, when it was time to do an interview, he wouldn't go to Good Morning America. Or he would go there after he went to Tavis Smiley. Prince would interview with black media first, Vibe Magazine, Tavis Smiley. Prince, I remember before he died, he came to LA in 2014. Those of you from LA, y'all know. Prince did 25 shows at the Forum, the Great Western Forum where the Lakers used to play, in Inglewood, California, and he only charged $25. Like over half the stadium, the seat was only $25. Now, if you wanted to sit right there next to the stage, you could pay more. But he figured he wanted to give something to the people who gave something to them. This back before gentrification. This is when Inglewood was still black, bliggity black. He came to the hood and did 25 shows within a 2-month period for $25. That's who Prince was. Michael Jackson bought half of Sony's publishing. Yeah, he went and sang Black and White. Okay, I'm going to sing this for you motherfuckers out there. Great. Okay. But what did he follow Black and White up with? Remember the time? The first time black people were shown as leaders of ancient Kemet, as the rulers of ancient Kemet, was on TV, was in Remember the Time video by Michael Jackson, 1992. People forget about that. And loyal listeners, y'all know what I'm about to say, but for everyone else who ain't heard me before, remember that line. Michael Jackson was telling you, you and me in Spain. What about? He was telling you about the Moorish conquest of Spain and rulership of Southern Europe from 711 to 1492. That's why the song's talking about remembering the time. Remembering black people when you ruled Egypt. Michael Jackson, when he got those records, gave Sly Stone back his catalog, gave Little Richard back his catalog, and gave back other artists we'll never know because he didn't run around telling it, bragging. You went to two of those shows? I went to two of those shows too, and Prince was here. One of those shows I was at, I went to two, but one of them, Prince brought Whitney Houston and Shaka Khan on stage. Oh, that was so dope. I still have the picture somewhere in my phone. I wish they had these iPhone 13 cameras back then. I took that picture on an iPhone 4 or some shit like that back before the camera. Man, Whitney Houston ended up dying about a month and a half after that. But just before she passed away, I got to see her on stage with Prince. Rest in peace to the king and the queen, Prince and Whitney Houston. Yeah, Michael Jackson's in the Guinness Book of Rare Records of giving the most of his money away. He would give the black colleges, give the black people. They don't really care about it. Michael Jackson's second half of his solo career, when you listen to that music from the 90s on, all that shit was very political, waking you up. They were black. Michael Jackson used to do the BET Awards. Remember that? Remember when Prince boycotted the BET Awards because they fired Tavis Smiley? Remember that? Back when our greatest of our greatest were black first. And they made more money than all these other niggas that say, I gotta get that bag. Prince and Michael Jackson got bigger bags than all you niggas. And they were still black first. But as we get through the 80s and into the 90s, hip hop had really taken over. Rap. And rap was a militant, when in its zenith, in its beginning, was a militant form of music. Had party music, no doubt. Had fun music. But in order to be the best, you had to prove you're the best. The radio stations, you had to prove, because back then, this is before Bill Clinton's 1996 Telecommunications Act. The Telecommunications Act is what allowed conglomerates to buy radio stations all across the country. When it's before, you couldn't own a nationally syndicated radio station and a local radio station. It had to be one or the other. What that did was it allowed radio stations to stay at a cost that local people can afford those radio stations, provided they had enough advertising dollars on that station. Local people can find it. And since the local people supported it, it was the local music that made it happen. You could be a dope artist in a city, run down and meet up with a DJ in a certain city and get them to play your rap mix on the Friday night mixdown back in the 80s and the 90s. When music had that ecosystem, the greatest got pushed to the top because people got their shot. But if didn't nobody call in and say your music was hot, it didn't get played again. But if your people called into the station and said, oh, that LL Cool J joint, that NWA joint, that Too Short joint, whatever it was, that shit was hot, play it again. That's what broke national rap artists back then. You had to pop in your city first. And once your city vouched for you, once they called in enough for you and the song got popular enough, then it got exported to the rest of the country. The record industry had no say over what was hot with hip hop in the 80s and the early 90s. As you get into the 90s and especially into the 2000s, that's when the record industry got total control over what we see through video and hear through music. So that's why I cut my year off at 93. If people want to extend it to 96, I'm not going to argue with you. But I draw a hard line at 96, being the year I cut off for the golden age of American music. Because although after that you still had a lot of great music, hell, my favorite artist from my generation is Erykah Badu. She didn't come out until 1997. So one of my favorite artists of all time didn't crack until after what I'm calling the golden age of music. The Soulquarian sound came a little later on. You had Kanye came on a little later. You got your Kendricks, you got your J. Cole's that are out there now. Anderson .Paaks. It's still great music being put together to this day. Great music hasn't gone anywhere. Great music is still being put out through this day. But when I say there's a golden age of music, the golden age is when our music was uninterrupted and it was put out by us for us without being prostituted through the record industry. And it was the highest quality music. Even though I love a lot of current music, current R&B, I love Bilal, I love Anthony Hamilton, I like all of them. Music Soul Child, I love them all. When it comes down to how music was put together, there's no comparison between anything post 1979. It just isn't. The complexity, the way the music was layered, the movement, the vocal ability, the harmonies, the lack of music videos to push. Your music had to crack in the 70s because, see, now a song will crack because people like the video. That shit wasn't an option in 1976. Nigga, your song better be good. It was all about the music. You didn't have to be a runway model and look a certain way. You could be ugly than a motherfucker. Look at James Brown, Sly Stone. Them some ugly ass niggas. Them niggas is ugly. Love you. Love them. Them niggas is ugly. Them niggas look like wombats. Shit, but wombats create the best music. The way music was layered back then, the care and the love, and also the money. You got to realize, R&B, funk, disco, when it's live, that is the most expensive form of music to create. It's very expensive to do R&B the right way. Part of the reason why R&B post 70s ain't the same is because the budgets were cut back in the 80s. And now, when you put together a music back in the 70s, you had it layered with horns, strings, ad-libs, harmonies. And to get 5 people to sing the same way, that takes work. The song is done. It may cost. I remember my father-in-law. I asked him what song took the most time and took the most to put together out of all the songs he did. And he said, and this song goes into the 80s, but he said, even his recording techniques, he still at Motown, he was still recording like they did in the 70s, in the 80s, and that's why his music is still fucking popular through this day. But he said when he put together All Night Long, that was probably the most involved song that he did. Over 100 musicians were used in and out. You had those string arrangements, just listen to when you listen to music back then, you have to really listen closely to all of the layers being put together. See, nowadays you can just sit at a computer, get different sounds and layer it. And even though you can do that, people still don't layer their music the way they did back then. Back then you had to go into the recording studio and record each one of these sounds. And what if the arrangement that you wrote out, when you get to the session that night, you hear it played back and it don't fit with the music? What you got to do? You just paid this whole orchestra $10,000 to come play that part on top of the studio time that you paid for, which probably another 10, 20 grand. Now you got a string part that don't fit the song. You got to go you got to go write another string arrangement and hire another string orchestral group to come in and do it again. And do it again. I remember he said it took like months to do that song All Night Long. All night long, all night, yeah. There was just a certain love and tenderness and caring that was in the music back then that we haven't had since. So that's why I call 1955 to 1993 the golden age of American music. It's the times that all of the different forms of our music were alive. Everything before 1955, going back to jazz, was still around in 1955, other than ragtime. And by 93, you at your greatest era of hip hop. That's why, in my opinion, that's the golden age of American music. And all music that we hear is a sample or a knockoff of what was going on during that time. We have a dope history to celebrate as a people, folks. A very deep history. And a lot of our history lies within the music. When you learn the music, you can really learn the history. When you learn the music, you can learn the history. Go back and listen to my interview with Mr. Bobby Royce. Listen to both of them. The history lessons. And download Mixcloud, because we're going to be doing more of these shows with the music. We're going to be doing more of these shows with the music. I'm going to go ahead and put the phone number up here. I wasn't going to take calls, but I'll take like 2 or 3 calls. If I don't get no calls within the next 30 seconds, I'm not going to take any calls. But if y'all have something to say, 323-744-7425. 323-744-7425. Yeah, Jack. Music lost the beautiful spirit it used to have. You're right. You can't get any better spirit in music than Frankie Beverly and Maze. Come on now. Frankie Beverly and Maze, their music screams love and unity and good spirit. Music has lost a lot of that, especially in the radio play music. You still get that in other forms of music, but as far as the radio goes, you don't really get that no more. Cool. Anybody calling in? Because I ain't going to keep this shit open for long. I'm about to go smoke some weed. Nigga. I'm in my office right now. I don't smoke weed in my office. But I'm about to go out to the man cave, turn on some music. Follow me on Instagram. I'm about to be listening to music. And I think while I'm listening to music, I'm going to drop some more history facts with some of the music that I'm listening to while I'm out there getting high. I thank y'all for listening. Hotepish.com for t-shirts. Everything that website is being worked on right now, so I don't have too much new stuff. I don't have too much going on. You still buy from that website, but it's getting reworked right now. I have some new shit for you next week when it is up. And remember this. There are no perfect messengers. Only perfect messages for those who are willing to pick up the game. Oh, I got a call. Hold on. Let me take this call before I get off. Ooh, caller, you called in just in time. I was just about to sign out. What's up?
Hey, brother. I just wanted to share a little music history with you. I'm a little bit older than you. I'm 60. And so I grew up in Michigan. And my mother was the road manager for the Valvolettes. And so I met Stevie Wonder at a very, very young age. And your father-in-law probably knows Johnny Bristol because, you know, Johnny Bristol did Ain't No Mountain High Enough. He was the producer. But I bet your father-in-law did the strings for that, I imagine.
That Ain't No Mountain High Enough was before he got to Motown.
Oh, okay. And that was Johnny. Now, my friend Johnny Bristol Jr. was actually at the, when Michael Jackson and them tried out at Barry's house in Detroit. Yeah. And so I've like watched so many groups that like the Stylistics in the 70s. Now, one thing that you probably being on the West Coast, you probably wasn't heard as much go-go music, you know, like Chuck Brown, Rare Essence. You know, you probably never heard that, and it was almost like a continuation of swing music in somewhat, if you can, because you got
go-go was kind of in the middle of swing and funk.
Yeah, go-go, exactly. Yep, the middle, yep, exactly. And it's just like you said, music is supposed to lift you. Isn't that kind of what George Clinton says? The music is supposed to lift you.
Yep.
And you know, Jimi Hendrix played at a Hertz that lifted us up, that actually broke through some of this calcification. And then, you know, the music later on, it came out to put us more down. But I'll end with this. I think 79 was a tremendous year of music because you had King Tim III, you had Rapper's Delight, you had the Christmas album by Curtis Blow. I want to say Not Just Knee Deep. And then you had Drop the Bomb by Trouble Funk. And then you had Let's Get Small by Rare Essence. And so, you know, that was my freshman year. I went to North Carolina A&T, so that was my freshman year. So that was like one of the greatest.
That was a great fucking year. When I say 76 was the greatest year, I'm saying that by literally a half of a hair length. I mean, the 70s in general, just to me, especially my favorite era of music is really between 74 and 79. 74 and 82. Between those years to me. But
oh, and we both love the Dramatics. That is my all-time favorite group is the Dramatics.
Yeah, man,
and you know they're from Detroit, and they didn't sign with Motown.
Yeah,
they were the few groups that did, and that's why I like when Snoop used them. It's a Doggy Dog World.
Yep.
Yeah, he got the Dramatics. So if anybody's calling, you know, I just wanted, but since support and stuff, you know, this is a great history. I really love it, and I look forward to listening to you in weeks to come. So right on, brother.
I appreciate it, brother. You have a good one, man. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
What's up, caller? What's your name? Where you calling from?
How you doing, Mr. Dwan? This is Black Power from Florida.
Yes, sir. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I wanted to tell you that I really enjoyed your show. It was very powerful. And because I've been, I love black music a lot, and I love black music so much that it has inspired me to write great black music. And the reason why I say that my music is great is because of what people have told me. When I have written my songs, people have told me that it really changed them and it really inspired them. So that's a good thing. But I just wanted to say that I really learned a lot about more about black history and black music history, which is what I always like to find the truth, because there's a lot of liars out there and there's a lot of thieves that copies black music and don't give proper respect or credit. And I always look for those type of people, the criminals or the thieves that steal our music and don't give credit. And I look for the ones that do give credit and do give respect. So what I wanted to also mention to you, the music, I love American music so much, but another type of music that I love so much that people have copied and stolen, just like with the Black American music, what I wanted to say was the reggae dance hall music has gone through the same types of theft like what the Black American music has gone through. And what I mean by that is, for example, with the reggaeton, unfortunately, the reggae music and the reggae dance hall, the music is so powerful and so amazing. And what I wanted to let you know was there's a big difference between reggae and dancehall and reggaeton. And just so you know, that music was copied and stolen because of its greatness. And I wanted to let you know this also, that reggae music and dancehall music is for all beautiful Black people around the world. But just like how the enemy comes in and tries to change the message in Black music, they've done the same thing with reggae and dance hall, where when reggae music during the 80s and 90s was trying to promote Black unity, Black empowerment, the outsiders, the white industry or the white execs or white labels or white music industry executives would come in and tell the Black people, like Shabba Ranks. You remember Shabba Ranks?
Yeah.
Yeah, people like Shabba Ranks and Buju Banton and Beanie Man, people like them, Lady Saw, don't sing so Black. Don't sing about Black empowerment. Instead, sing about, white people, or sing about everybody except for Black empowerment. So I wanted you to, to your listeners, to really listen to the real reggae music, listen to the real dance hall music, because the beats are so powerful and the beats are so powerful and so great. That's why it was stolen, and that's why you have reggaeton today. If the music
it came down.
Great,
I thank you for that. I thank you for that, because I'm gonna speak more to that. But thank you for giving me a call.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime. Thank you.
I appreciate that, brother. Yeah.
Anytime. Thank you. All right. Okay.
Yeah, when it comes to reggaeton and dancehall and reggae, again, those are all still children of Black American blues. They're still children of Black American R&B. Same thing happened to them is the same thing that happened to us. And once the record industry came up in there, read a book called Blue Monday. It really breaks down how ska, which evolved into reggae, which evolved into a dancehall, all came out from when the people of Jamaica were sharecropping, were coming into Florida to pick the sugar fields of Florida. And what they would do is they would buy albums when they would come. It was like, they were like, we would get some money, but they made more money on buying Black American music albums and taking them back to Jamaica. And remember, the radio stations out of New Orleans and out of Miami used to reach Jamaica and Cuba. So because they got to hear our music, and because there was a cultural exchange, because they were being brought here to the United States to work, they also adopted within the DNA the militancy within their music that was born out of the Black American struggle. Again, like I told you guys before about Detroit, how Detroit had its own feel. Well, when you talk about dancehall and when you talk about reggae, that's still the blues expressed in an island environment. So there's an island energy to it, an island feel to it. But it's still the blues. It's still Muddy Waters. It's still Chuck Berry. It's still Roscoe Parrish. It's still Fats Domino. And of course, the record industry came in and bastardized it. And of course, we know reggaeton is different because reggaeton is black music out of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was reggaeton, reggae was Jamaica. Salsa was New York with Cuba and New Orleans influence. Yeah, they did the same. Look, when you tell the story of one, you tell the story of all. How they bastardize our stuff is how they bastardize their stuff too. Always remember that. And someone did mention Go-Go. I forgot to mention Go-Go. Go-Go, I hate Go-Go. But Go-Go is still a certified Black American music. And it's great. Don't get me wrong. It's great. Chuck Brown, EU, doing the but. That's Go-Go at its finest. I get it. But I wasn't raised in D.C., so when it comes to D.C., when it comes to Washington, D.C., I'm more into the Blackbirds. That's more my pace when it comes to D.C. music. Donald Byrd and the Blackbirds. Doing it in the park. Doing it after dark. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But go back and listen to my interview, my show I did on the Black R&B roots of reggae. Yeah, reggaeton, I appreciate it, but I hate reggaeton too. Ooh, I cannot stand reggaeton. That shit annoys me. Dancehall is annoying too to me. I like reggae. I can listen to Bob Marley and the Wailers and some ska. But dancehall and reggaeton kind of, after about, give the light and passenger. I'd be like, all right. Do. But again, it's still our music, black folks. We got so much greatness within our music. You can like certain parts and not like others. That's all good, man. It's all good. It's all good, man. It's all good. If someone from the island said they didn't like funk, I'd be like, all right, that's cool. I get it. Whatever. I don't really fuck with house music either. EDM, none of that shit. I like Flying Lotus, but every now, I don't. But it's still black music. I don't like it though. Too goddamn fast. Them Chicago niggas. There's nothing but electric disco. But disco is a form of music I don't really like that much. I like some disco. Chic. Certain songs, but for the most part, disco, I listen to 80s white rock more than I listen to disco. Hell no, I ain't listening to no Daddy Yankee, Eduardo. Hell no. Salute to Daddy Yankee. Salute to people who like that music, but Daddy Yankee is not my speed of music. Yeah, he's right, Ty Banks. No one wants to give us credit. But that's fine. They don't have to give us credit. We just got to take it. We so dope at what we do. We just got to be sitting back and watching other people talk. And we be like, oh, look at that nigga over there. They crazy. We got to start speaking up. They ain't going to give us shit. We got to take it. And that's why I'm doing what I do. I got tired of saying, man, they don't give us credit. I'm like, man, fuck this shit. I'm going to create incense and ashtrays. And I'm going to give us credit. Oh, God. I don't like Daddy Yankee. I don't like Pitbull. I don't like none of that shit. Nigga, Pitbull look like Mike Bibby from the Sacramento Kings. I don't like that shit, man. But for those who do, cool. But you're welcome, brother. I'll take your calls anytime. Look, one thing I like about my chat room, I be talking shit to y'all sometimes. Y'all come right back up here. I be talking shit. That's because talking shit is fun. Talking shit is like the breath of life to me. I'll never not talk shit. It ain't personal. It's just fun. But I'll be back at you guys later on this week with some news and information. I will be doing some more incense and ashtrays this week. Thank everyone who joins Incense and Ashtray. I appreciate you, Star. Been up in there with your comments and suggestions. I appreciate Ben Frank, all you motherfuckers. Somebody said I look like a black big pun. Boo! All the fat niggas out there, the Big Pun's the only one you could think about. You gotta hit me harder than that. It's a fat joke, man. Come on, fat jokes are easy. I'm gonna take this last call. What's up, caller? What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, my name is Cheryl Max. I'm calling from Ohio.
Hi, how you doing, Cheryl? What's on your mind?
Now I'm just talking about when you were discussing Motown. I've been listening to some old Motown videos or music videos on YouTube, and I am just amazed about how much work they put into their music. And I've just found a new way of looking at Motown and how powerful and wonderful they really were.
Oh, they put in
for the last couple of weeks.
They
so
put in.
That's I wanted.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you for calling.
All right, thank you.
Because I have a special. She just brought up Motown. I was on the phone yesterday again with Miss Brenda Holloway. We're trying to nail down this interview. It's gonna be sometime soon, but unfortunately, Miss Holloway's husband recently passed away, so it's been really, really, really tough on her. But Brenda Holloway, if you don't know, she was one of Motown's first major acts. She was the first glam project Motown had. When you look at Diana Ross, everything that they got right with Diana Ross, it started with Miss Brenda Holloway. She was beautiful. And she had big hits, a few big songs with Motown. It just ended up not working out, and we'll find out why more detail when we have that interview. But Miss Brenda Holloway, we will be interviewing her really soon to talk about the early days at Motown. So caller who just called in from Ohio, I forgot your name that quick, I'm sorry. We'll get more stories firsthand from Motown from Miss Brenda Holloway when we interview pretty soon. All right. I thank y'all for listening. Time for me to go and smoke some weed. Remember this, there are no perfect messengers, only perfect messages for those who are willing to pick up the game. My name is Dwan B. I'm out.